What up, Danny?
Oh, what's up, man? Can you hear me?
What's going on, man? I recognize you from
Yeah.
the
I
collab sessions. What's going on, bro?
I signed up after those sessions.
Good to hear, man.
Yeah, I get some more insight. I actually have a quick question, or hopefully it's a quick question. So I was paying attention to the video you guys dropped with Abe about
Yep.
The Instagram promotion. I found it like super useful.
Good.
The thing I'm like trying to think about or trying to figure out is how often should we be checking the promotion to see how effective it is. So I see I'm getting clicks, but they're not converting yet. And I know Abe said it takes about 30 days, but
Mhm.
should I be seeing conversions a lot quicker? Like
It definitely takes some time to see those conversions, to see those clicks convert into sales. Abe was pretty spot on. I mean, I've noticed the same trend when I run Facebook ads. I usually, when it comes to new customers, I usually don't see the sales until about 30 days in. So that's why it's useful to have the Facebook pixel, because you can retarget and re-promote to those people who visit your site. But you should be checking the ads. Like, if I were you to start out with, I would be checking them like every day, every other day, just to monitor them and see how effective they are.
Yeah. And a follow up to that is I know in the video he showed how to use the cards on Instagram, the carousel cards. Have you tried, or do you know if he's tried using? I know there's a way you can promote in stories instead of doing the carousel. Have you guys tried that, and have you seen which one's more effective?
I have not used the stories. Yeah, I mean, I haven't used the stories. Sometimes, actually, for some of the ads, it's by default the stories is turned off. So I don't know if a carousel would work for IG stories. Maybe it would, but I usually get the best conversions just through the feed and on Instagram.
All right, cool. I've actually been seeing the opposite on mine, but it might just be because I'm starting out and I don't have that many like leads or anything. But I don't know. See what happens.
So you have the Pixel installed, right?
Yeah, I just installed that, and I'm working on trying to get more people to the site and all that kind of stuff. Just like promoting it a lot more often, putting it out there a lot more often.
Yeah. Are you running the carousel with the videos?
Yeah, I have 10 videos. I have the carousel.
All your top selling beats, right?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I've only sold one beat, and then like last week it sold exclusive. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, like it was a good lump sum. But then now I'm thinking, it might be better to not sell exclusive in the beginning just to get more data.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I would hold off on selling any exclusives. Just collect the licensing money so you can, and that'll also give you an idea of which beats are your most popular ones. And you're just going to make more money in the long run by holding on to the exclusive rights. I know it's hard to turn down when someone, offers you a big bag for the exclusive rights.
Yeah.
But just know that in the long run, you'll make more money just through the licensing, the non-exclusives.
All right, cool. Yeah, those are the only questions I had. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, man.
Right on, man. I'm glad you joined.
Yeah.
There he is. The man of the hour, DJ Payne one.
So Marc is in here.
Okay. Let me see if I can find him.
His username is Smilow, so.
Oh, I see him.
Yeah, we just need to make him a panelist.
Just did that, so he should be in here.
Cool. Yep, we see him. What's up, Marc? Marc, you are muted, sir.
Hang on, let me unmute him. Marc, can you hear me?
I hear you.
What's up, bro?
We're live.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. Technology.
Yep. Well, welcome to the 21st.
Yeah. I don't know if I like it. Can sell music this way, right? Just play it.
I'm told you can. I'm also told that there's no money in the labels anymore. So I guess
that's true. Except for we all read articles that say that they made money this year.
Right. Exactly.
I think it was close to 1.2 billion. I think I read somewhere.
I think it was 1.2 billion increase, right? But they made like 8 billion or something. Yeah.
Right.
Are you in a good spot to talk, or do you want to wait a minute?
I'm in front of the grocery store. I will probably be ready at 9:30, but I can stay on hold. I mean, if people.
Okay. We have people slowly trickling in, so I guess everybody knows it's not a scam. There was I take full responsibility for the confusion about the times. There was an event page on the Music Entrepreneur Club that said 9, and then the one on Beatclub said 9:30, and 9:30 was the correct time. So that's my fault. So people will probably continue trickling in, and then we'll be ready right at 9:30. So perfect your questions for Marc Smilow in the meantime, and tweet about how disorganized and chaotic my life is. Also, if you choose.
I'm about to tweet about it right now.
I will retweet it and like it and favorite it.
No, even if I'm driving, that works.
I was just chopping it up with people in here, answering some general questions.
Is there a fee? Because I only see the three of us. So, no, I see. I get it. Okay.
Yeah, the way we have it set up is webinar style, so we just pick the ones who can chime in whenever they would like to chime in. So that's a little. Otherwise, it's just a little chaotic, and audio starts feeding back, and blending in. It's just a mess. But yeah, we have 10 people in here so far, so shout out to everybody that's in here. But we'll probably have quite a few more within the next 12 minutes.
Did anyone else have any other like general questions for me or Payne while we wait? All right. Let's see a couple questions.
Louis said that we are starting a little early. They're not going to go on until 9:30, but we are. No, I'm just letting you know. See, when you're in the music business, you don't get to start shopping till 9 o'clock at night for your groceries and eat dinner till after 10, if you're lucky enough to eat it all, right?
That's actually the first question we had, so we knocked that one out. What time do you get to eat and grocery shop once you're in the music industry?
That's a very important question. We got Mon. We got Mon on here wanting to ask a question. What up, Mon?
What's going on, y'all? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, so my question is just in terms of I've been at the last BeatStars meetup. A lot of producers were telling me, "Hey, reach out to artists and all of that stuff." But I'm testing the waters between saying like, "Hey, I sell beats," and then just kind of coming with a more subtle approach. Which one tends to be more effective? Because I've heard I'm not spamming and just sending the same message, but I heard just say, "Hey, I sell beats, you should check me out," isn't an effective strategy for real.
Okay.
I guess I've never really done like my feeling about that is, and this is just my personal feeling, if I reach out to an artist and say I have beats, it's probably because I want to work with them. There are certain contexts where I think it's cool to hit them with kind of an informal soft sales pitch. For example, if they comment on a video of you making a beat or one of your beats, or they reply to your tweet, or they say, hey, listen to my music. That's kind of my response to rapper spam a lot of the time. I just send them back a link to my page, and rather than cuss them out for spamming me. And you know, there's no shortage of rappers who spam you or jump in your inbox, and you know, sometimes you don't even want to listen to their link and just say, yeah, that's dope, I got a beat that you might like, and then you send them to your beat store or something. I feel like that's fair game. I just don't feel right reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, I have beats, and then trying to sell the beat to them. That's just me personally. I will reach out to artists with whom I think I can make dope music, and people who are already building a good buzz and have a good fan base already that I think I can make some money with. But that's more networking. You know, I have the beats, you have the lyrics. Let's put our platforms together and marry our brands, at least for a song or a project or something, and see how we can, you know, help each other out. And that's networking to me. I'm sure I can think of a lot of other contexts in which hit them with the sales pitch, the subtle sales pitch. I just don't know that I would, out of nowhere, reach out to an artist and use that method. I don't know what Kato's experiences have been.
Yeah, Mon, where do you live?
Atlanta.
Oh yeah, you are in Atlanta. I recognize you from the BeatStars meetup. So if I were you, bro, you live in a fucking hip hop hub. If I were you, I would get off the internet and I would go to like local showcases. I would go to these open mics. I would meet these artists, you know, face to face, and network with them that way, because the internet has become such a like informal place to just kind of like spam people with your music. And so if it's someone that isn't familiar with you, then, you know, chances are it's going to be kind of hard to build that relationship organically. So if we're talking about in the context of like you trying to license beats to them and just like send them to your beat store, then that's just you setting up an incentive to send them to your beat store, and then, you know, getting their information and following up with them and making a customer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, appreciate it, y'all.
Damn. Mon had a lot going on in the background. It was like at a fucking club.
It's New York City for you. New York City for you. I was just going to say also, the guy who was listening, always build with people who are in the same place you are, because the music business people come up and down. So you may be building with someone who's assistant, who literally in 10 years is an A&R. So you don't ever know who you're building with too.
Right. It's true.
Frozen.
Let me see. We had a couple more. Oh, Nick. What up, Nick?
What's up, Kato? What's up, Payne? What's up, Mark? How you guys doing?
What's going down, Nick?
Not much, yo. I don't know how general this question is, but I was trying to ask this on the last session, but I just wrote it down. But I'm just curious because I'm new to the whole BeatStars, and I'm just building my catalog right now and whatnot. But just trying to get an idea. I sold my first lease, but I'm just trying to see like how like what's the average producer, like how many leases would they sell a month? Because like my goal is to do like 75 starting out like a month, and then I want to go up to like 150. And I know this isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to take time, but like I just want to see like how I'm setting my goals, because I'm kind of just doing it blind, you know, just with a blind eye. But
yeah. Nick, I would set, instead of setting a number of leases that you want to sell, I would set like a revenue number, or like a sales number. Like, I want to sell $1,000 worth of licenses this month, and you know, in terms of how you get there is a whole different discussion. That's just all marketing and promo and what you're doing to drive traffic to your site. But yeah, I would start with a number. I don't know if Payne has like different thoughts about that. What do you think, Payne?
Yeah, I mean, I set financial goals rather than a number of lease, just because money's easier to quantify overall, and lease types vary, the price points vary. I can't tell you what the average producer selling, the average producer, I mean, on the low end, if you're selling 75 leases a month, you're making nearly $2,000 a month if we're going off of the $24.99 model for the lowest possible basic lease, which is that's a good amount just starting out. I don't know that the average producer is making that amount monthly. So, I'd say set the goal, but really focus on the strategy.
Yeah.
Because the goal, if you're focusing too much on the goal, you might lose your mind, because by month 3 or 4, if you're not hitting that goal, you might think you're failing, when in reality you're actually building towards that goal slowly, because this is a long process. You're really playing the long game. And you wouldn't think so with the way that people discuss beat leases, especially, that Genius article where it's basically said something to the effect of leasing beats online and selling type beats is an easy way for artists to get in the game fast. That's bullshit. There's nothing fast about this game, period. There's nothing fast about this. So, exercise patience in conjunction with setting those goals, in conjunction with following the advice of folks like Abe, who was on here last week, step-by-step instructions on how to optimize your ad, create effective marketing campaigns via Facebook and Instagram, stuff like that. Just make sure you have all your ducks in a row, because that process and that strategy is what's ultimately going to allow you to accomplish that goal, not the goal itself.
Word, that was very informative, man. I appreciate that. And I was using the low end model as far as like beat sales, because I was like seeing, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take my job, and what do I gotta make just to break even, so one day I can quit my job and still make ends meet, and this can take my 9-to-5 spot. And that's why I was aiming for the 150, and then that would bring it up to about 4,000, and I'm like, all right, that's more comfortable than the 2,000 mark. But yeah, at the last BeatStars meeting too, I'm near the Boston area, and it was dope. Just network with a lot of producers and whatnot, and artists and engineers and whatnot, and we just exchanged IGs, phone numbers. So just building. But yeah, like what Abe was saying, I agree. So it's just a process, man. I appreciate you guys with those answers, because that was helpful for real.
Right on, bro.
Looks like we got one more, and then we can get into Marc, unless this question has to do with Marc.
Yeah, let me see. Okay, yeah, we got Brainiac. Brainiac Beats, what up, bro?
Hey, how you doing, family?
I'm good, man. How's the weather in Spain right now?
Well, I was there for the weekend, and it was nice, man. I'm back in Belgium now, and it's shitty again. Gray, rainy, as usual.
Yo, shout out to Brainiac, because I was actually in Belgium, and he reached out and took me out. So that was cool. I was in a place I had never been before, and it's good to have people in places that you would never expect. So shout out to him.
That's dope.
Man. Always my pleasure. Actually, my question is for Marc, and I wanted to know what's the percentage that we should reach for when negotiating a contract regarding royalties and all that.
Give me the first part of the question one more time.
Yeah, what's the percentage that we should reach for or aim for?
Oh, the percentage.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't even know where, because there's so many. There's licenses. There's there's the independent model, the majors model, the international model. I mean, I think that it almost goes to the last person's question, which is, you know, what do you want to earn on a monthly period? And if you're earning it, you know, if it's one beat that you get a license for that is, you know, financially takes care of you. You know, I have producers who I've worked with who do 2-3 placements a year at $20,000 a piece, and they're quite happy then doing studio time and some of the other business. And then there's guys who, you know, continue to want to build. So, I mean, again, it depends, I think, on the level, the percentages on the level of how you want to economically live through music or having a 9-to-5 or both. So I don't know what the percentage would be.
Yeah. I was like just curious about the numbers in the major labels right now. Like,
oh, and I mean, I mean, this is again. Now I'm going to get to being that old guy. I sent G Unit close to 1,500 beats in their heyday, and 15 of them got picked up. 7 of them got paid for. Another 7 got mixtaped or quote unquote used for credit. So I don't know what the percentage on that is, but I do know it was 1,500 beats.
Jesus. That's a lot of beats.
It was, but you know, shout out to Shaw Money. I don't know if, but I will tell you, they listened to all of them.
Wow.
And their system was incredible. You know, I personally went to drop off a beat CD. Shaw Money, I watched him put it in a burner, burn 7 copies, hand 1 to Bucks, 1 to Bank, who were at the studio. I know 50 ended up getting one, and they ended up choosing. On that CD, they ended up choosing one that ended up being Karma, which is from a kid named Jinx out of Madison, Wisconsin, kind of how I met Payne indirectly. But, you know, so again, the for the majors, I think the odds are just, it's all the right place, right time. Like I said, and the reason I thought Shaw Money was incredible is none of the artists knew who the beat was from. It was a kid out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Madison, not even Milwaukee, Madison. So that's... Odds are, you know.
Yeah, no standards, right?
Right. No, I mean, like I said, I told people from the very beginning of my career, if you can make a living doing this as your 9-to-5 job, whether it be 45 grand or becoming a millionaire, if this is what you can do full time and this is what you love, it's great. Maybe it will work for your life. Maybe it will work for 10 years and you'll change. But that could happen at any job.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Payne, how long have you been doing this now? I mean, we've known each other, what, probably 15 years?
I don't know if it's that long, but definitely.
Really?
I think we met in 2008, so we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary. I think. This year.
Okay. So you know, this is I've only known him to do this for 10 years and only become more and more successful, but he keeps up with technology far better than anyone I've ever met. So.
It's like I said, it's the long game. It's definitely the long game. It's not overnight. If you can use the resources you have now that weren't available 10 years ago to accelerate that process, God bless you. There's no telling. There really isn't.
So, Payne, you want to go ahead and just introduce Marc and let people know, you know, just do your introductions, man.
Absolutely. Number one, apologies again for the miscommunication about the times. Shout out to everybody that stuck it out, and I'm sure we'll have more people trickle in as time goes on. But today we are joined by a very special guest. We have the rare opportunity to communicate directly and ask direct questions to this special guest. His name is Marc Smilow. He's kind of been a ghost in the industry for many, many, many decades. As I said, I met him in New York in 2008, and he was the guy that facilitated a local producer who I really looked up to, named Jinx. Now his name is G-Bang, who I saw him the other day, actually. Facilitated a major placement for him. He went platinum off of the Lloyd Banks single in the heyday of G Unit. And, you know, that seeing somebody from where I'm from do that inspired me to kind of do the same thing a couple of years later. Right now, Marc Smilow manages Ike Beats, who recently produced Lil Uzi Vert's "That's the Way Life Goes." That was a pretty major single. He's managed Anthony Bell for some years, who's Jasmine Sullivan's go-to producer. He works with a multitude of artists, but she's a big one. He's worked with Knots, who I'm sure we all know. He's done a lot. I know he was A&Ring stuff for AZ. He was one of my favorite rappers ever. He was working with Baby Paul, who's a Grammy-nominated producer from New York, worked with Nas, AZ, so on and so forth. He's done a whole lot of stuff. I asked him if he could kind of describe what he would, if you could describe his position in the industry, how he would do it, and he was kind of at a loss for words. So I'm just going to let him take over and fill in any blanks that I may have left in that description.
That's interesting. Hi, everyone. What I would really say is that I am a 49-year-old gentleman who has been in the music business since I was 18 years old, and I got in where I fit in a lot of different places and did a whole lot of different things. But I found that my love was actually working with producers, because these are the guys that created the music, and generally the creativity was one thing and the business was another. And as it was brought to me much later, there's show and there's business, and some people are great at the show and others are great at business. It's very hard to do both well. So sometimes people like the show as much as they do the business. I like the business, but I love working with producers day in and day out, because the creativity is stimulating. You know what I mean? The chord structure of the way songs work and sounds and loops and the technology and, you know, the chit chat that goes on with producers is always fun to hear, whether it be Ableton Reason or Logic or Fruity Loops, or, you know, in my day it was the MP60, and then it's the MPC 2000, and now it's the Machine, and it moves on. But the producers were always just a part I loved. And what I realized is that it's very hard for producers to be in a studio and do business, because you have hours of creativity that work long and hard, and then there's times where you just have to go out and do the business. And if you can find a partner or a person or a teammate or people together, you know, it works. But it's hard, because you got to have the same vision and the same goals. But, you know, in between then and in the meantime, you find yourself in the entertainment industry being a jack of all trades, where, you know, you can't afford a PR guy because they charge $1,200 on the low end and $2,500 a month on the high end. And so you learn to do PR for yourself for a while, and then you learn how to, you know, see if there's radio. Actually, I think we also met Payne, because at that point you were doing a mix show a Saturday night, if I remember right, from Peter Parker's. How we met, we just happen to have a lot in common. Yeah. But it was, you know, Peter had said to me, "Oh man, you know, there's this radio DJ who." Peter, for those of you who don't know, Peter Parker's, I think, at 96.3 Go in Minnesota. And Peter has always been a guy who loves underground hip hop and has always supported a lot of the up and coming talented people in Minneapolis and also all over the Midwest. And, you know, he had introduced me to Payne, because I think I was working the Huey Project, maybe even. And we were doing some radio, and he said, "Nah, he's a great producer, blah, blah, blah." So I think that it's, you know, a lot of it is just you got to stay networking, stay grinding, stay on the internet, stay on, you know, all the different mediums. You know, back in the day, it was radio and magazines. You know, I was a loyal subscriber to the Source magazine, you know, stacks from the top of the desk to my hand. So 12 inches of previous issues and things that people had appeared in, you know, like now it's Hip Hop Weekly, you know, or All Hip Hop. And I'm even old, because I'm sure that there are much more newer ones, but it's that, you know, just staying networking. So that's what I would say is a lot of it. But it's, you know, it's a life that if you want it, it can be the greatest life of all, and it can also be frustrating. I mean, we pull out our hair because, you know, there are highs and lows, and they come back to back.
And this is, just to be clear, this is Beatclub, so this is interactive. Hopefully I prompted enough of these participants throughout the week to get questions ready for you. But just to kick things off, before hands go up, you know, raise your hands whenever you'd like, and I'll try to get everybody in the order in which I received the hands. But you were one of those guys who did something that was a little ahead of your time, insofar as producer advocacy is concerned, because just recently Foreign Tech from the Mechanics, I believe, tweeted that he was sick of having to pay for his plaques every time he got a song that was certified. And back to you facilitating that G-Unit situation with Jinx. You wrote in the contract, and this is something that a lot of producers said today, a lot of producers say, no, you can't do that, you'll piss the labels off. You wrote in the contract that the label covers the cost of the RIAA plaques should the project become certified either at the gold or platinum level. How did that happen at the time?
It actually happened because of, oddly enough, I was going into a lot of radio stations before I was doing a lot of this type of stuff. And if, you know, paying how many DJs and how many promotions guys did they give plaques to keep them motivated to spin the record? And I thought, you know, this is a crime, because the reality is why should producers have to pay for their plaques when they're creating the music? And the truth is, it's all a negotiation. The label is all they're trying to do is get it as cheaply as they can. They just want, you know, if they can get a beat for $3,500, they're excited. I have, you know, many friends who a first-time producer did a song, Doc Ish did a song called We Made You. And, you know, they ended up getting the publishing. You know, they tried to get the bigger story with Jinx is that there was a sample, and they tried to say that the sample took, you know, all of the musical royalties for the publishing, and that they only left for the lyrics. But the point is that it was negotiated that all three should split the cost of the samples. I mean, and that's pissing off the label. I don't think the labels ever get pissed off. Their job is to get it for as cheaply as they can, and it is your lawyer's job to fight for every right that you can. And the answer is lawyers are just going to do what they're advised to do, and it becomes a negotiating tactic, and it's true with all of it. I mean, why do we get bump ups at gold and platinum of 1% or 0.5%? Why is it not, you know, or why is it 3 points over 4 points or 2 points or a 75% statutory rate? And the answer is because, you know, they're 30-page contracts that when you show a producer, they don't understand it, and their lawyers are saying it's industry standard. But the industry's changing constantly, so why can't we change? You know, what is a breakage deduction doing nowadays when physical units don't really exist that much anymore? It's not even close to a breakage, but they're still in the contracts. So it's a dinosaur, you know, and it's got to evolve. And if we don't fight for it, it's not going to. And generally a lawyer, in my opinion, the lawyers don't necessarily fight for it, because at the end of the day, they represent 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 producers, and they want to keep their relationship with, you know, the labels and, you know, attorneys in good standing. So they're not like, he's a difficult guy or a difficult client. I mean, I think if anything, that's what you would get is he's difficult, or his team is difficult. But the truth is, if it's a hot record, they don't care how difficult it is. The artist says, I want it, and the A&R says, I want it, and they negotiate. But again, it's their job to take
I'm glad you brought up the whole radio DJ program director, music director comparison with the actual producers who create and compose the music. Because certainly if you go to any radio station, even small market, medium market, their walls are littered with plaques, littered with plaques. I want to pick up on two things that you said. Number one, we have a question, and I figured you were actually the person that referred me to the folks who made my plaque. I think I paid around $350 for it. What would you say is the average price of an RIAA?
No, I mean, I think the basic plaque, which is like an album, a CD cover, and it used to be a cassette and a CD and then a piece of vinyl, is like $225. And then, you know, the ones that you see like G-Unit with 50 stars around it, or flags for platinum in every territory, you know, I've seen them up to $750. And it was a company called DJ Gold, DEEJAY Gold. You can Google them. And there was another one in New Jersey, which I don't think is open, called Illegal. But there used to be 15 companies that were RIAA certified plaque makers. So.
Okay, so because a lot of people are thinking, you know, thousands of dollars.
Basic ones. Yeah, basic ones are like $250.
And then you were talking earlier about price bumps. Now, a lot of producers, I'm just going to take over since I don't see any hands raised, because I think people are in the zone listening to this conversation. Producers often mistake the different kinds of royalty streams they don't mistake them; they conflate them. So
Right.
people will think mechanicals are the same thing as points, or the same thing as publishing, and so on and so forth. And sometimes they overlap. But when it comes to negotiations, points are separate from publishing.
Right. I actually, even to get in more detail, which I know you know, when a producer makes a record, he is given an advance, and then he has to recoup that advance plus generally 50% of the cost of promotion of the record, like he was an artist. And therefore, they get a 2 to 4% royalty. Standard is 3. Sometimes it can go up if there's 2 producers and the label wants the record. They'll give you 4. If it's an unknown producer, they'll try to get you down to 2 because they're willing, if they think you're willing to go for it, they're going to ask for it. And that is strictly off of sales of physical units based off of after you have recouped your advance and any other costs associated. Then there are publishing royalties, which is for the creator of the track, which is, again, if you sample or not, we can get into all different details. But then there's publishers' royalties, which is called the mechanical royalties. So there are 2 different sets of royalties for any producer. One is publishing and the other is production royalties.
So a lot of people are confused, and I understand why, because it is confusing about royalty points. So royalty points have to do with sales. You said standard is 3%. What does 3% really mean in practical terms?
Oh, I think when they broke it down, the standard is about 8 cents per single. Divided that, so what is 3% of 8 cents?
Yeah, not much.
I mean, I don't know the exact figure, but it's, micro pennies. But they add up. I mean, the answer is a lot of times you won't even see a statement that's positive or negative. Oddly enough, Payne, I made some good money collecting producers' royalties on stuff like, there was a guy named Prestige, a producer, Prestige, who used to work for the Hitman, who did Always Be My Sunshine and Imaginary Player for Jay on, and there was producer royalties that were owed. It was 3%, but this was after many years that he finally recouped all the expenses and the costs. And in this case, as a producer, most of them who are on big records, the first thing they do when they get a big check is either move out of their houses or apartments or don't, find stability, but the stability doesn't always last. So again, in this case, the important lesson is to always update the address of where the labels can contact you, because if they don't, they will hold your money. They will send it to you once, it gets sent back, send it to you twice, sent back the third time, they don't even bother to send it. So you always have to have a current W-2 and a letter of address, which is generally handled in the producer's contract. It is generally a letter of direction, but again, many producers are not at the addresses. So some people have it sent to their attorney, but again, even sending it to your attorney doesn't always make sense because you may not use that attorney again, or the label may be paid for it. So, again, letter of directions of where your payments or your statements are supposed to go, which is completely different than where we started on the topic of producers' royalties. But it's the pennies do. I mean, I guess the lesson that I would say is the pennies do add up, and collect everyone that you can, because even if it's $1,200, $1,500, or $10,000 or $50,000, it's money, and it all helps pay cell phone bills, rent, and you are entitled to your money. So to me, that was, I guess, what I always advocated was to keep the producers paid to where they should be paid, and making sure that there is paperwork, even if it's not the greatest paperwork, because it happens constantly, but that there is paperwork and you keep up with it. So I know I varied off there for you, but.
Sure, absolutely. I don't know if you are at liberty to discuss this stuff, so I won't say names, but I interviewed a street runner recently, and he, he's won a bunch of Grammys, has 1,000,001 plaques, and
was he working? We're talking about the street runner who worked with Khaled and the Nasty and his brother.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
So his strong warning to producers is that they should not sign co-pub deals, which is what is the technical term for the traditional publishing deal.
All right, you did. I'm going to interrupt. You did not hear this from me, but this is my advice on any publishing deal. A publishing deal is nothing but a high-rated mortgage where you are borrowing money at a percentage where you cannot, paying it back will keep you in debt forever. And the answer is it's a lot of money up front, and it will resolve a lot of problems from the initial advance, but meeting the requirements of the amount of money they give you grow greater and greater. I mean, actually, I will speak openly. My client Ike has a six-figure publishing deal on the table, and he does need the money, but at the end of the day, in the long run, the amount that they want to give him versus the fulfillment obligation from the publisher is so great that it will solve problems for the next 6 months, but after 6 months, if you don't have more placements, you will be working for less and less guaranteed money when you do have a record. So in my opinion, a publishing deal or a co-pub or any of those types of situations, it's a form of a high interest loan. And like I said, we all borrow money, and, there's banks and everything else, but they are the ones who are set up to do that mostly as the publishing company. So like I would say, if you don't need the money, or even with producers that I have who have, high-end publishing deals, if you need to send a kid to college in my age bracket, or if you want to buy a house or something, then it's a different issue, because, if you're taking the money to buy yourself a house, you're buying yourself some stability, but don't take a high interest loan if you don't need to. That would be my advice, oddly enough.
So we have a couple of questions. I'm going to ask the most relevant one, and I want to add a piece of the question on. So what's being asked is it better to say no to publishing? You kind of already.
No, but I'll answer. Go ahead. I mean,
by not answering it, but so the second part is: are there publishing deals that are reasonable, or are all of them kind of bait and switch? And then to add on to that, I know that Street Runner's suggestion was an admin situation,
right?
And that's a different kind of publishing deal that isn't a co-pub deal. So could you
let me actually maybe make it simple for people. An admin deal is definitely, if offered, the way to do it. The way publishing deals are structured is there's what's known as an MDRC, which is a minimal commitment that you have to make before you trigger a second advance. So let's say your publishing deal is worth $180,000. They'll give you $100 up front, $40 after the first commitment, and $40 after the second commitment. But to trigger the second commitment, you have to have an MDRC of X percent. Like in this case, the publishing deal that I'm talking about had a 300% commitment, and the producer only owned 25% because he co-produced it. 25%. 2 songs he co-produced, and one he did. One had a sample, so I think he owned 56.25%. So he was going to get $100,000 for that, but to get the rest of the money, he would have had to basically got another 244% of a record. And if you know the way of the publishing structure works, generally the lyrical composer who creates and writes the music gets 50% and the producer gets 50%. But that can all be broken down into whether you co-produce it and whether there's a sample. So it is complicated for whoever just put that, I think Mon. But that's, so to me, an admin deal is a better deal because there is no commitment. And the other situation that you can do is a recoup deal, which is, and those aren't given out a lot, but again, depends on the producer, where it's based off the amount of money that you take from them that you have to pay back. So
I think some people are understanding what we're talking about and some aren't. So let's back up. What does a publishing company do?
they collect they collect the royalty of the song of the lyrical writer and the composer or producer, depending, again, this is where it gets sticky for producers. The composer can be the person who actually plays the instruments, which could be a musician for hire. A producer is a person who puts together the musical component of the records with the lyrical component. So that's a producer. So generally, a record is divided into, it's 100%, 50% for the lyrical writer and 50% for the person who created the music. So again, some people say the composer, some people say, Puffy is a producer in himself, although I don't think he's ever touched an instrument in his life, but he has hired musicians to create musical content. Is that the right way of putting it, Payne? Is that
Yeah, let's go with it.
So, and then that's how a song is created. And the publishing then is based, again, it's a mechanical rate. I think the current is 9 cents for every time it's sold. I think that it may be different. I don't know the new standard in terms of streams. I think it's an amount of streams is equal to one physical unit. I don't know what that number is, although I have posted it, and I will try to find it and repost it or send it to Payne One, where it breaks down for every, I think the number that I read, for every million streams, it's worth about $4,000 per, for the song. So.
Yep, I read that too. I think that was on the low end. So.
Right. So. Well, and again, each independent streaming service has different rates a little bit, and that's, again, where I think we're working. I think Tidal and Spotify are different than Apple. I think Apple pays 8 cents. I think Spotify may pay 7, but I would have to actually, you know what? I will turn my head because my computer is here, so I will look and see if I can find that, because it's an interesting post.
Yeah, the whole conversation about publishing is so complicated, and it's full of trap doors.
Right.
Because just to be clear, so theoretically, if you're a producer and you produce a song and compose it 100% yourself, no samples, no co-producers, nothing, you own 50% of that song. That's your publishing split. You own 50%, which is 100% of the publisher's share.
Right.
And
correct.
So when that song is played and it's generating money from streaming, from radio, from television, from certain types of performance spaces, from being licensed to commercials and movies and stuff, then you're entitled to that money. And right. So what the publishing companies do is, if they think that you have a song that you own a part of that's going to be successful and that they can make money off of, they'll buy half of your publishing, your publisher's share from you.
Hold on. Technically, they will give you a 50-50 deal.
Sure.
And the reason I'm saying hold on, but they will pay you. They won't pay you on your 50% until you have recouped the money that they have given you. So, I mean, again, even though you have 50%, you may not be getting any of that money until you've paid them back which they have extended out to you from the start.
But technically, they're buying your publisher's share, which would be half of whatever. So. Right. And then theoretically, they're collecting aggressively on your behalf, doing stuff that you can't do, getting the money that you can't reach, and getting
especially for the international, sales. I mean, that's actually a great thing. I can tell you, it's very difficult to collect international publishing because it's a different performance royalty. It's not BMI, ASCAP, or CSAC, and yes, they are supposed to have relations like SOCAN in Canada and stuff. But it does always end up that there are different societies and different labels, and sometimes what may have been on Sony here or Epic here in the United States could be on Sony because it's licensed out to one of their affiliates. So, I mean, again, I'm jumping ahead into so many things that I've seen, but it's basically they're giving you a loan for an amount of money or taking a risk on a belief in you as a producer that you have an ability to sell records or help them sell records with their artist or their publisher or their writers in this case. But
yeah, and I'm just talking my way through this because I've never tried to explain publishing because it's so complicated. So I'm glad that I have you here to correct me if I
and I don't even know if I'm correct, because there are always things that change, and you know, as we all know, legal contracts are very tricky. But you know, people can put in things, which is, you know, publishing was actually created based off of sheet music for pianos that, you know, in the old time Westerns where you see the piano, the automatic piano player, that's sheet music in a way.
Yeah,
so.
That's why they're called mechanicals, because those were mechanical pianos.
Right. So, I mean, it is almost so archaic and outdated in many ways. I hate to say it, because, you know, whoever imagined we would go from sheet music, the old pianos, to where we are now. I actually pulled it up, and what I found, 1 million streams on Amazon is equal to $4,200. 1 million streams on Tidal is equal to $12,000. 1 million streams on Apple is equal to $7,300. 1 million streams on Spotify is $4,000, and 1 million streams on YouTube is $690. One stream is equal to 0.00069. One stream is 0.00437. You know, Apple. I mean, I'll send this to you, Payne. Or, you know what? Are you near your computer?
Yeah.
But for those that are interested, it's you know, it's just a breakdown. You know, that it's interesting to know, and you know, I every time I look at this, I say the same thing. For as much as people say whatever they want about Jay-Z and Tidal, at least he is being fair to the people who he is streaming.
So do me a
we're
favor,
better than anyone else.
Send me that link, Mark, and I'll post it into the chat here.
Okay. Can I? Where do you want me to send it? To your email or?
Yeah, just email it to me.
Okay.
So we have a bunch of questions, and yeah, we jumped all the way down the rabbit hole with this publishing conversation. So now we're going to try to climb our way back up. Danny asks if labels are still soliciting beats from outside producers, or are they just trying to sign producers to publishing deals? Which I think this kind of shows that there's a misunderstanding here with the difference between selling a beat and signing a publishing deal. So I don't know if you want to take that on.
Right. Well, I mean, it's actually twofold. The answer is that the average A&R guy is getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of submissions a day. And it's not that they work with their own inside producers. It's that, you know, part of it is relationships. I mean, your placement with Jeezy, you know, to me, Payne, for those of you who don't know, Payne had a placement with Jeezy many years ago. And I was very impressed because it was kind of out of the Atlanta realm. It was out of the world that those of us who knew Jeezy or the people over at the label, it was, you know, it came from left field, but so was Jinx. But it was, again, it was based on relationship. So I think they're always taking beats and playing them, but it's the odds, because if you send it to an A&R, the A&R has to like the beat himself enough to play it for the artist, and then the artist has to play it. Generally, that's how it always happens. So I think the odds get less and less, but I think that, you know, the difference is a publisher will submit beats to artists or to the A&Rs and people because they have an incentive to help increase their profit for their clients who owe them money. So the publishing, again, is something for when you have music out on a major or with a distributor who will pay the publishing. If you're an independent label, you own your own publishing and you pay yourself. But if you're a major, then that's different. But so I think it happens both ways. I think that there are definitely publishers who actually Anthony Bell, one of his friends is a guy by the name of Mel Shishboom Lewis, and he signed to BMG Publishing, and part of his deal was that they put him in a studio with some of their writers every year for musical retreats or things like that, and they just worked with the songwriter Sebastian Cole, who also happens to be an artist at Motown. So it was just a meeting. There's no guarantees that the record is going to make the album, but at least they were with the producer and the artist were in the same room, and that was set up by the publisher who has the publishing rights to the artist.
So yeah, I guess just to be crystal clear, you can get a placement with a label without having any kind of publishing deal, and the label is not gonna force you into a publishing deal just to make that record happen.
Right.
You know, we like to think of record labels as super evil, and maybe they are, but you don't you don't need to get into a publishing deal, or you don't have to be signed to a publisher in order to get a placement at a label. You know, a lot of labels aren't publishers. I mean, it's separate. You know, the A&R is getting the beats. They're not working directly for the publishers. They're working for the label. And this might be more of a question for Marc. I think it gets confusing because there's Universal Music Group, and then there's Universal as a publishing entity. And so, you know, they're not the same thing. They don't even, I don't think, have this, they don't share a building, maybe they do. I don't know.
I don't know. I know that Universal Publishing I think, yeah, they may share a building. They may share a piece of real estate.
But they operate separately. I mean,
Right.
You don't have to go through one to get to the other.
No, not at all. I mean, and as a matter of fact, I mean, they're actually, oddly enough, I don't know if this exists so much anymore, but there used to be 3 Universals, but the third was not actually called Universal. It was the manufacturing department for the company. Because remember, a lot of these record labels did not actually manufacture their own product. There was Sony Manufacturing, Sony Music, and then Sony ATV Publishing. So there was 3 different Sonys for 3 different entities. So they all work independently, you know. And again, it's just another opportunity because obviously, you know, if someone has invested money in you, they're going to want to help you to make it back. So again, it's not that publishing companies are evil. They're just high interest loans, because there are some publishers, you know, like I said, recently BMG, I've seen them do some nice things, but again, it's knowing the knowledge of what your property, I guess it's an intellectual property, is worth. You know, the composition is considered an intellectual property, and that's why you can have a placement on MTV and they pay you a couple $100, or you can have it on a record and they pay royalties, and each one is different. So
someone had a clarification question. They were under the impression that, I guess they're affiliated with BMI, and they were under the impression that BMI collected money for them. So they were surprised to learn that there's a collection. BMI collects performance royalties, which means every time it is spun on air, so it's played, they collect money, and they collect the money of every time is licensed for a TV show. But there is also still the publishing from the physical units of that. And there's also, I actually don't know, I think, isn't it Sound Exchange that collects digital plays for things that are played digitally? I think the streams and stuff is more through Sound Exchange than it is. Yeah, some of it's Sound Exchange, but some of it is the traditional PROs. Like I think
Right.
Spotify goes through the, BMI ASCAP, that kind of thing. And then it gets complicated, like you said, with the international plays, because
right,
that's hard to monitor. You know, there might be thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars just floating around there that are lost in international waters.
And actually, I'll give you one that I've ended up doing myself and found out about. Music that is played in like Detroit, Michigan, and Maine and borderline states are actually heard in Canada. So therefore, there's Canadian monies that become available. Now, again, it's always pennies, but Canadian records that are played in Canada but picked up in Detroit and vice versa, they're 2 different societies and 2 different ways of paying people. So again, you know, if you're getting spins in Detroit, there's probably some Canadian money. Now it's, you know, again, maybe 1/10 of a penny, but it's still money. So I mean, that's the trick with publishing, is that it's all over the place of how it's collected, how big your record is, if it's international, you know. And again, these things are all hard for us producers or producer managers even to understand all of this, and then go ahead, collect that money, and then in the meantime you're going to go and spend 7 hours making beats. And so some people are willing, and that's why they do admin deals, to collect these pennies, because they do add up.
Trying to see, do we have more questions either on publishing? We can start an entirely new topic. We have a good 20 minutes left.
And also, this goes back to that whole situation of where I was talking about. You know, the rules of the game of evolution are changing. You know, from 8-tracks to cassettes to vinyl to CDs to MP3s to streams to whatever is next. So I mean, the attorneys want to bully you into thinking that this is standard, but what is standard when the technology is changing? I mean, you know, so this is something that we have to fight for if we want, you know, and make an effort. I mean, one of my favorite things in the producers' contracts, and I think this was in yours, Payne, one, if memory serves, just from asking you about your royalties back many years ago, was the fact of producer agrees to a recording cost, or mutually agrees to a recording cost. And the answer is, Payne never saw a budget. He just saw the budget of what they were allotting for the track. He didn't see what Jeezy paid, how much Jeezy paid for in the studio. What did, you know, was it a $50 an hour studio, or was it a $2,500? You know, he didn't actually see the budget, but the contracts we signed and agreed to says that it was a mutually approved and agreed upon budget. Again, nobody's going to fight it, because you don't want to argue over or lose a placement by being a pain in the ass. But the reality is that, you know, we all hear the stories about artists going into studios and not showing up for 8-10 hours. Somebody had to pay for it. And generally, I hate to say it, it comes out of the producer. On a major, at least. Payne, I sent it to, I hope it's not an old email. I sent it to your, the Gmail, the old one that I have.
Yeah,
the older one.
Let me grab that now.
Okay.
Yep, that should be all good.
Okay.
We do have, hold on, I think we have a question.
We have a Q&A question. I don't think it's been addressed, but Anonymous asks, how do major labels buy back album sales to get put on the top
Billboard?
100? Yeah.
SoundScan. I mean, back in, you know, the answer is back in the day it was SoundScan. They, you know, you could go buy physical units. I mean, if you buy a unit, think about this. I mean, because people have talked about this all the time, and I'll break this down, but let me break it. In the old days, it was buying a unit from the store. They would just buy it and then go return it. And then for a while, you know, there are some rumors that, you know, you go put your music on iTunes, and we all know iTunes sells for 99 cents. And if you get one sale, the amount you make is 79 cents on the back end. If you retail it for 99 and you sell it, the profit that came back is 79 cents. So if you bought your own units, if you went and took $100,000, you could sell 100,000 units and make 79,000 of it back. So you could basically spend 20,000 that you would do to promote a video to buy back your own 100,000 units. But again, that's a losing battle. But some labels and some people did it because, oh, look, there's traction on the record. And traction, you know, may draw other people ahead. Does that make sense?
Right. Yep.
Okay. And that's, you know, I mean, again, I don't know. I have not worked with anybody, but there was times where, you know, you can get on the Rat Caviar list of Spotify. I don't know if it's all based on a hot record, or does somebody know, you know, somebody who said, you know, let me play it for him. But for me to play it, you need to grease my pockets. So, I mean, again, that's the payola game. And, you know, the original was guys like, you know, Adam
Morris Levy, and a book called, I think it was called Hitmen, which were guys that would go up with bags of records to play records on radio. And
so is this practice still happening, or not as much, or do you know?
I mean, I think it always happens. I mean, the music business and life in general is about who you know. There are definitely, radio is, there's still payola going on in radio, but they tried to fix it by the people meter, which, for those of you who are in radio or don't know, the people meter was when a certain number of people were listening to a record, you could tell by what was getting played was based off of people who were listening to the station and not changing it at the same time. And that was kind of a formula of what got played on a playlist. So I think it does still. I mean, the simple answer is yes, it still happens, but I think that sometimes it's more discreet, sometimes it's not. I know that there are DJs who for $100, $200, $300 will give you a couple spins in the overnight and not report it and not do it, but it's their hustle, for lack of a better word.
And I honestly wonder how they do that, because I've seen it advertised just right on their Twitter. Right. And I think that's literally breaking the law that, a law that was put in place in the 50s.
Right.
And radio stations take that very seriously. I remember back to Peter Parker, who was a mutual friend of ours. He and I supported J. Cole's very first record, which was Lights Please. And as a result, because we were early supporters, Sony, I believe he was signed to Sony at the time, wanted to, or maybe it was Columbia, wanted to fly us out to meet J. Cole. But I had to sign this contract saying I did not exchange this plane ticket for spins, which I didn't. Obviously, that was after the fact. They're just, they want to foster that relationship, so I support more records in the future. So is that technically payola? No. Are they giving me an experience? They flew me out to go hang out with J. Cole and see Jay-Z perform and all that to foster that relationship. So are they greasing a palm in some sense? Yeah. I mean, the radio guys, the radio promoter guys, they have a budget. They, when I used to go out to New York, they might buy me lunch. You know what I mean? They might fly out to the city and they might have their artists perform for my radio station for a free or reduced cost, that kind of thing. So no one's paying directly. I mean, maybe some people are, but that's totally against the law and they might get in a lot of trouble. If you're paying directly for radio spins, you're violating the law. But there are indirect ways. You pay people who have relationships with the stations and the program directors and stuff to get them that music. Because if I have a relationship with someone like Lee LaRue, for example, at I think he's at Warner still, and he sends me your record and says, can you please play this? I'd appreciate it. He's not paying me a cent. Someone paid him to send me this record, but I might play it just because I like the guy. Because when I go to New York, he takes me out to lunch. That's kind of the game. And like Mark said, that's just happening everywhere.
On every level. I mean, from Spotify to YouTube. I mean, but part of it is to build that buzz to get it to catch, quote unquote, naturally. And that's why, it's interesting because, as we all do the analytics and the history, Ike, the producer I represent, did The Way Life Goes. And it was interesting because the record, as I tracked it, it got up to 55,000 spins on what I call terrestrial radio, meaning, an FM station. And then it seemed like Atlantic had pulled back off of it because it was not reaching over to the pop market as big as XO Tour Life did. And that's how they determined how to move on to the next record. You know what I mean? Is how the interaction does at radio. And that's, again, every time Payne plays it, if he put a hammer on it, he could hit it once. And then if he really liked the record, bring it back, for a spin or another look and hype it up. And that gets the people going. So, I mean, the entertainment industry is all about, like I said earlier, I don't know if people were on, about the show and the business. You know what I mean? If every time Payne goes to Atlanta and had a good time, you know, because of a friend, it makes it a more pleasurable experience. And that's just the way I think the music business is in general, is that, you know, your friends, if you are headed in the same direction, you can build and work. Actually, I mean, I was having a conversation with Payne one today, and I actually didn't tell him, you know, the 2 deals that you recently did, I applaud you personally, because, you know, it's a global industry and it's a global business. And I think the one mistake that producers and everybody make is that it's a global business, and that there's money to be made from music all across the world. You know, the music business, no matter what anyone says, it is a business of iPads and streams, you know, and it's constantly changing. And, you know, being able to stream a record and heard, if anyone ever uses TuneCore, I think we all have seen the Apple Music UK, the Apple Music this, the Apple Music, you know, there's 14, 15 different Apple Music stores, because I'm sure the licensing is different. And, you know, following the algorithms of these things matter, because, you know, you may have a fan base of 1,200 followers in, you know, the UK, and that may be enough to create a show for those. So, I mean, again, I think it's just staying up with the trends and the technologies and speaking to your friends. I mean, you know, again, I watched Payne grow quite a bit, and now I'm coming back to him to ask him questions. I mean, he recently was helping me by, you know, doing some mixtape stuff for an artist that I was working with, and I said to him, you know, what do the algorithms look like? What does it look like? Because, you know, it wasn't my field at that point, and I'm beginning to learn more and more about these algorithms. But, you know, Pat and Chance have done a great job at understanding the algorithms of where their fans are, because they work hard, you know. And this goes back to every spin and everything and every relationship that you build, they matter, you know.
So we have 2 burning questions. One is a raised hand, and then one is a question that's been asked already, but it's been rephrased. So are there any suggested books, so books that you would suggest that cover these topics in a modern context?
I don't know if he's done an update, but there was a guy by the name of Donald Passman who wrote a book called All You Need to Know About the Music Business, I think it's called, or something very similar to All You Need to Know. I don't know when he last updated, but the last one I had seen, I think, was version 14. But he's an attorney, and it's a good book. So that's one.
Any online resources that you use to find information on, you know, because information is moving faster than
right. I mean, look, I think just by varying who you follow and learning from guys like Payne One, myself, you know, the stats that I sent you, Payne, someone had posted on Facebook that I had clipped, and I reposted it because I believed in it and thought it was an incredible, just a nice amount of information to know, you know.
And I will post that to the Beatclub Facebook community. The next question is from Nick. He has his hands raised, so he's gonna go live with us.
Oh, okay. Hey, Nick.
Nick, what's going down?
What's up? How you guys doing? So the question I got for you is, like, it has to do with copywriting. So basically, if you produce it and you're making your beats and you copyright it and you send it off to the artist or whatnot, but then they decide to make a couple of changes to it. Now, that's a derivative work. So does that not count under that copyright anymore for that beat, or how does that part work? Because I feel like once you copyright your beats and the artist ends up doing something different with it, you got to go through the process of copyrighting that beat again, and then they list you as an author on the song. Like, that's aside from publishing and whatnot, because just more for protection for your beats.
And actually, this is a really gray area and confusing too, because if you own the copyright when you originally created the beat, generally in the producer's agreement, they want to take over the copyright for the term of the contract, you know, and therefore you don't actually even control the copyright anymore.
Yeah, that's called work for hire.
Right. Right.
So
So
yeah,
if it's with
they would have the work for hire somewhere thrown in the contract in the
Right.
last page or something, right?
right. Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, again, that's the gray area because you owned it until somebody pays you for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that makes kind of. But, yeah.
But actually, oddly enough, you know, I learned this from a guy by the name of Greg McBowman, who is an amazing person when it comes to the publishing world. You know, what you can do is if you have an instrumental, you can copyright it and release it commercially on like an iTunes or that, and then, you know, again, negotiate with the label and say, look, I want to hold the original copyright, but I will license you the copyright.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, if they agree to it, and it does get done occasionally, but again, you know, in a way, it's you know, like you said, I think it was the Neptunes dibbled and dabbled, where it was the same beat multiple times, but a key or a chord change or the structure of the song, but the basic layout of it was the same. And I think the way they got around it was just the copyright, you know, of it.
You know what? Let me share my screen very quickly. How do I do this? Is it working? Yeah. So I'm just going to show you an agreement that I had for a Joe Budden record that I did a while ago. They don't hide the work for hire provision. It's right there. As you can see, this is section 1, or this is the first title, section B, right here, the master, work made for hire. You know, and that just means, look, they shall have the exclusive, unrestricted, perpetual right throughout the universe to use, distribute, sell, and exploit the master, which is another word for your copyright. And then right down here it says, you know, United States Copyright Office. So
yeah,
contracts are very confusing and they're tricky, but once you know what, and I would love to have a conversation with a lawyer, and I think I'll work on getting a lawyer here. I would love to just go through a contract, because they vary, but they don't vary that much. And stuff like work for hire and stuff like advance and stuff like publishing, you know, those are keywords that should always trigger your brain to say, all right, pay extra attention to this section. And you know, just because I'm not saying do this by yourself, you should always have a lawyer, but you should also understand as much as you possibly can, so you can communicate with your lawyer. And like Mark was saying, it's all negotiable. So the more you know, the better you can tell your lawyer what you need.
Or not only that, but also the fact of what you're willing to exchange. The reason I put in the pay for plaques portion was because I knew I wasn't going to get the bump ups on things, so at least make them play for a plaque. It wasn't an even trade by any means, but you know, it's something you can trade. It's a negotiation point.
Yeah, you just wanted to add a little something in there, just
right. Yeah, just,
okay.
I mean, cool. And out of curiosity, was that Joe? I'm picking on you. Did that end up because of stuff that you had sent to Imani originally?
Yes. Okay, that's another thing. So yeah, you introduced me to a singer-songwriter named Imani, who's now, I guess, retired.
No, he's not. He's working.
Because he just got married, so now he's back.
Right.
Well, he was retired for a period of time. Technically, Joe Budden is retired as well. Who knows if that's going to last? But he was working heavily with Joe, and you know, it must have been that he introduced us or something. I had a bunch of records with Joe Budden, but it must have been because of that.
No, it was because I was always looking for stuff for Imani, and then he was working. And the reason I'm actually bringing this up is to actually prove a point, which is, you know, also it's relationships. You know, I mean, Payne and I have had our ups and downs in our relationships, and I have sent things his way that have made him money, and I have sent him things where it probably cost him money at times too. But at the end of the day, you know, the one thing that Payne and a lot of people will say about me personally is that, you know, I don't hide anything. You know, I mean, I don't believe in it, because the reality is I'm always proud that he got placements through a relationship that I introduced him to, because Imani was looking for songs for me and A&Ring Joe's project at the time, and Payne was a dope producer. So to me, it was a great opportunity. And then there's other things that haven't worked out, but you just don't know where the relationships go and how, you know, how they affect each other. Because, you know, there's also relationships that Payne and I have seen through other mutual friends of ours, that people took advantage of people who Payne and I were not involved in it directly, but there are projects that, you know, people took credit for things that they didn't do. And, you know, so again, it all goes back to knowing the information, you know, knowing if you're the writer and someone, you know, it is well known and rumored that there are artists who don't write, but they will ask for a percentage of the publishing for them to use the record, you know, and they say that Beyonce asks for a percentage of the record, whether she wrote on it or not, if she's going to use it. And, you know, again, I have not experienced that, so I can't confirm or deny, but, you know, I have seen it happen in my 10-year with major artists. So, you know, the relationships. But does that answer your question at all, Nick?
Yeah, yes, because there comes to a certain point where, like, you only have so much control over what's going on,
right.
What's going on. So, like, it's all about how much leverage you have at the end of the day. So, like,
right. or what you're willing to sign off on, because, you know, every placement is not a major placement, but you don't know what that placement leads to. Because, like I said, you know, P took an opportunity to give me tracks for Imani, who ended up playing them for Joe Buttons. So, I mean, in the long run, we did not make any money off of that stuff together at all. But I'm glad to hear that he did, and that there was a contract, because, you know, and that's my thing is that it's a lot of it is just keeping your relationships good and being honest and knowing what you're signing and what you're not. I mean, you know, like Payne just pulled up, he said, here's the copyright. You know, we all know it. We all know that you're giving it away. And, you know, I didn't read the whole thing, but it was, what was it? Probably 99 years they have the copyright, or 50. Because the things that people may not know, and if I would tell people, here's some things to go work. A lot of people like Rod Stewart and that era of music are just getting some of their copyrights back from the labels now, and are going and redoing major, you know, 7-8 figure deals that are just unbelievable. You know, like I said, I know Rod Stewart did it. I know that some of the Motown guys were doing it. But again, so reversion rights, when you do sign a publishing deal, when do you get your rights back? You know, and understanding what that means. You know, you're paying your lawyer. Here's what I would say, and this is the pain in the ass part of me. You're paying your lawyer to negotiate your contract. Sometimes the labels even pay for it. Ask your lawyer to sit down and explain to you anything you don't understand, because at the end of the day, you're paying him.
True.
You know,
True.
And it's a flat fee. You know, usually it's a flat fee or a percentage. So.
I appreciate that, man, and Payne, I appreciate you sharing your screen and showing that as well. And yeah, that was pretty informative. And just tread lightly. I get it. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Anyone there?
So it looks like we've kind of
peaked
a lull, but it's also 4 minutes past. So Marc, we appreciate you coming through, joining us.
Oh, no problem.
And I might harass you again to have you back on.
Whenever.
Cool, man.
Appreciate
So
it, Marc.
I will post to the Beatclub Facebook community the infographic that you sent me about streaming and publishing and all that. And once again, thank you for taking your time. Shout out to everyone who attended today. Appreciate those of you for asking questions. And we will be back same time, same place next week right here on Beatclub.
Take care, everyone, and thank you, Payne.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Payne.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
All right, everyone.
Peace.
All right, you too. Peace, everyone.